Up next is Transformational Capabilities Office New Business Process Competitive Opportunities.
Hi, my name is Chris Ristich, and I'm the director of a new office in AFRL called the Transformational Capabilities Office. And I'm here today with Dr. Tyson Ross. Tyson is the division chief responsible for TCO operations and execution. Together, we're going to tag team and give a little bit of an overview of the TCO and its formation, including a background, organizational construct, some of the key processes that we're putting in place to develop transformational capabilities, and then specifically diving into several of our programs we call Vanguards. Vanguards are some significant transformational capabilities that we have chartered through the Department of the Air Force. So before we get into the TCO, I want to talk about its origins, because AFRL RS as a two-letter actually began and continues to operate as the Strategic Development Planning and Experimentation Office. So an office that, while executing from within AFRL, actually executes 6.4 and 6.6 levels of funding. So not science and technology, but focused on capability, focused on transformational capabilities largely in support of organizations like AFWIC. And bringing operational experimentation, where we take cutting edge technologies at the 6.4 level and bring them together, develop ConOps, concepts of operations, and concepts of employment to look at rapidly creating capabilities, generating a leave behind capability, and enabling the potential for rapid fielding of follow-on capabilities as well. So the interesting thing about that is the office is focused not just on any given single technology, but fundamentally on capability, fundamentally on system of systems and multi-domain capabilities. And it was clear to leadership that as we stood up the TCO, that SDPE was a great model for that new office, and leadership made the decision to stand up the TCO as a sister organization to the sometimes called Speedy office, where we would actually integrate S&T 6.2, 6.3 together with 6.4 and 6.6 and create an integrated capability development roadmap. So we'll talk about that more in a moment. The Transformational Capabilities Office and all that we're going to talk about now for the rest of this session is fundamentally about implementing elements of the new science and technology strategy that was signed by the Secretary of the Air Force last year. And objective one is leading the transformation of transformational capabilities, the development and transition of transformational capabilities. So that's where we're focused on for the TCO. Let me switch gears and go to a deep dive. So I mentioned that the strategy you see in the upper left there was really the driver for it. There's a few key elements that you need to know here. Although we're focusing on transformational component today, and the strategy calls for a 20% investment of the S&T portfolio, which is very significant, into transformational capabilities. It's really important to understand its relationship to the rest of AFRL. The 80% remains focusing on things like discovery and tech maturation, rapid response, and focusing on major command capability gaps. All of those important elements continue. So we build off of the expertise and the programs and the technologies in the rest of AFRL and implement them through the TCO portfolio. That's sort of the vision. But we're focused specifically on future force design, looking at things that are first in class in terms of innovation and capabilities. The vanguards we'll talk about are some flagships in a sense of some of those significant efforts. We'll get to those in a moment. But the TCO is to focus on those 5 strategic capabilities you see in the middle there: the global persistent awareness, resilient information sharing, rapid effective decision making, and so forth. But as we do that, we will be building out a portfolio of technologies, capabilities, and seedlings. Next chart. Oops, sorry. It's not perfect. So let me talk a little bit more about the relationship of these two offices. The intent was that there would be a synergy between the two as we built them up. And even in the first year of execution, we're already seeing that. So although we're independent of the technical discipline of AFRL, we actually rely heavily on executing through those different subject matter experts across the laboratory. SDPE and TCO, if you look down on the right side, we'll talk more about each of those vanguards in a moment. But for each of the vanguards, we have a corresponding 6-4 experiment or prototyping effort already planned and in place to execute. And we'll talk more about the synergy between those two efforts as we go along, but we're already forming essentially an integrated 6-2, 6-3, 6-4 roadmap, and with development planning even 6-6. So we're executing as a dual-hatted organization, as I mentioned earlier. And we call it a sister organization to SDPE, but you see that it's more than just a sister, because it's really about integrating and creating connective tissue between those different activities. It's not just about building something in the TCO and experimenting with it later. What Tyson will talk to you about in a little bit is how experimentation, operational experimentation, is actually shaping the vanguards as they continue to develop. And that is, we're seeing that as potentially a best practice for how we want to execute vanguards in the future. So the basic scope of TCO as an organization is to manage these vanguards that we've talked about, but to also to pilot these processes to develop transformational concepts and technologies. And so we're going to talk about something called WarTech, which is our key process for doing that in a moment. And we also have a third thrust that's about competing for ideas, essentially. How do we reach out across government and industry to tap into disruptive new technologies that could form warfighting capabilities? And so we've got our Explore investment portfolio that is building over time to do that. The other thing that we're doing is although we tap into the technical subject matter experts across the laboratory, and remember there are over 3,500 experts across the AFRL, we bring the TCO program managers or the manager of the vanguards into the TCO to operate as a central location and reach out across and integrate the activities of AFRL. So far, that process is working really well. And I say so far because, as the bottom bullet says, you know, it's all about being a learning organization. It's about being agile. It's about learning from what works well and what doesn't work as well. And we are investing that knowledge back into the organization as we go. In fact, of the processes that you see there, the Vanguards, WarTech, and Air Force Explore, we've essentially gone through a 1.0 version of those, and now we are heading into what we're calling the 2.0 version. So we're implementing all of the lessons learned from the first phase of these activities and improving, essentially constant improvement. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about WarTech here. WarTech is a little bit of a play on names, essentially warfighting and technologies. So warfighters and technologies, bringing them together to formulate warfighting concepts for the future. I'm going to talk to this process through this chart, and I know it's a busy chart, but we can kind of break it down in a few basic elements. That middle big bar that you see there is really what we call the ideation and curation phase of WarTech. The idea is that we bring operators together with technologists, with acquisition folks, with strategists. You want to have a diversity of expertise, essentially, that we bring together, and we have them focus on future force operational challenges. So we're giving them significant kinds of challenges that we're seeing that come out of things like the Air Force Warfighting Integration Capability, the AFWIC, and potentially now with the Space Force, the new Space Warfighting Analysis Center, the SWAC. So we'll receive that demand signal for future force, and we'll bring together these diverse teams to essentially ideate and curate as in actually formulate a specific science and technology program that will deliver those capabilities when brought together with ConOps. Now, what's different about this than the past? The challenges are more significant as we look at the future force challenges. So they're beyond the maybe more traditional MAJCOM, major command capability gaps that we've responded to in the past over the past years. And the other thing that's different now is there's a compelling need to reach out to ideas and technologies from a much broader source than just from within AFRL. You know, as Dr. Roper likes to say, a significant fraction, a huge fraction of the science and technology investments in this country alone occur outside of the DoD, which is a transformation over the past couple of decades. So how do we reach out to our other partners in DARPA and SCO and other DoD laboratories, national laboratories, as well as industry, both the traditional DoD industry and non-traditional as well. So part of that is bringing all of that opportunity scan, that awareness of these challenges into these ideation phases, and then that curation element happens where we bring these pieces together and formulate concepts. At the end, as we go through that process, you see that it's months long. The intent is to evolve the concepts, war game, analyze the different concepts, and look for the potential military utility, the life cycle costs associated with the concepts, and bring those to a summit in the June timeframe. So we have leadership has formulated something we call the XCOM, or Executive Committee. It's basically a two-star panel formed from AFRL, from SAF-AQR, from the AFWIC, from the Space Force Requirements Shop, and also from the Chief Technology and Innovation Officer in the Space Force. So we really are, we're building on that vision of the commanders of ensuring that we're responding to both air and Space Force needs. That summit then will prioritize these concepts and queue up potential vanguards. So the vanguards, remember, a really significant investment in effort, in cost, and we'll talk more about what that looks like and what their distinguishing characteristics are. But we can't afford to have too many of these, so we really have to choose the ones that are going to be the most impactful and deliver that future force that we need. So the intent then is, after that two-star level panel, the XCOM, we'll finish polishing and refining the concepts and bring them to the Capability Development Council for the ones that we believe are ready to go to the Vanguard status, and bring them to the CDC for chartering. All right, so now let me set the stage a little bit. That's how the process works. What we found, again, even in our version 1 of that process, is you really don't want to enter into these ideation and curation phases unless you've gone through and really thought through both how you want to focus, what is the scope of the operational challenge you want to attack this time. And that's going to evolve over time. As we build up a portfolio of capabilities, we're going to start to realize that we have areas that we need additional emphasis in. We also want to make sure that when we, even within a focus area for a challenge, we want to scope it so that we can quantify the objectives, the operational capabilities we need. But we also want to be able to scope it in such a way that it is something that can be broken down by these teams, that it's small enough to be handled by the ideation teams, but big enough to be impactful at a strategic level. So we've implemented in that first part there what we're calling a Vortex scoping phase, where we do just that. We take those future force challenges, we bring together operators and technologists, strategists, acquisition folks, and we start to focus on different areas of the future force challenge, essentially. And those will be both space and Air Force driven. And then we'll prioritize and drive those into the ideation, curation phases, and so forth. And then this becomes a repeating cycle each year, where we review the portfolio, we look for gaps and opportunities, we look at progress, and we focus on new operational challenges. And you can imagine that as we're going through this process, we're also going to be essentially laying out a lot of the demand signal for much of the rest of the laboratory too, in what we call our enduring and enabling component. So that's sort of the process that we're developing here. If you look at it, really is an evolution of things like the capability collaboration teams, the CCTs that we had under the service core functions. But again, where the challenges now are strategic and focused specifically on the future force, cutting across different mission areas and different core functions, essentially, of the Air Force. All right, so next chart. Now we're gonna move into the vanguards, and I'm gonna hand it over to Tyson in a few minutes. But first, a note about the vanguards and their construct. They're defined in that first bullet. So capability development efforts with enterprise commitment to deliver game-changing capabilities to transform Air Force operations for the future force. So game-changing, first-in-class kinds of activities. They're enterprise. They're looking across the Department of the Air Force, including both the Space and Air Force. And an enterprise commitment to deliver these to the field, essentially. So it means it's a really large commitment, not just about technology demonstrators, though. This is about capability, and it means we need to understand all of the ecosystem that these are going to operate in, the .mil PFP aspects, the doctrine, organization, training, and so forth that are associated with transitioning these technologies into capabilities in the Air Force. I talked a little bit about the integration of the 6.3 and 6.4 elements there. And again, that's already gelled and started to really build some new best processes. And we're pretty excited about that. But in order to enter into the Vanguard categories, there's a few things that have to happen. So we have down there AFWIC certification of alignment with the operating concept and the theory of victory. What that really means is AFWIC, and now that, remember, that Space Warfighting Analysis Center, are going to essentially certify that this is important to meet the future needs of the air and space forces. That's important. That's entry criteria to even be considered. And because these are usually large investments, it requires an AFRL commitment to prioritize the funding for these. So as we take these candidates to the CDC, it means we have stakeholder buy-in and a commitment to make these happen. And that sort of box at the bottom is what we've called the distinguishing factor in these, the headquarters Air Force, and it really is a department of the Air Force commitment to transition, is what we call the distinguishing characteristic. So building all that stakeholder buy-in before we launch activities is the way of the future here, and how we're going to bridge that valley of death. You saw in the previous chart, and I emphasized technology, or I'm sorry, competition of ideas is at the core of this. We have to be able to harness ideas and technologies from all sources. So we've got a number of different processes in there where we engage industry. We are going to be working with our partners in AFWorks to look at how we can especially reach out to those non-traditional elements of industry as well. And collaborating specifically, we've already formed partnerships with our other organizations like DARPA and SCO and so forth that will bring ideas to the table for these that we can incorporate and build off of in our Vanguard designs as well going in the future. So a lot of exciting activities that are going to be going on here as we start formulating these ideas. We're going to talk about the first round of Vanguards here in a moment. But we are in the process now of refining potential candidates for the second phase of WarTech, or second phase of, well, both WarTech and Vanguards. All right, so Tyson, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay. And as Kristen mentioned, my name's Tyson Ross, and my primary responsibility within TCO is to actually help oversee and execute the Vanguards. And what we've learned so far is that Vanguards are the ultimate team sport. It's a true integration between industry, the Air Force, and all the different technical directorates within the Air Force working together to bring these into fruition. And as Chris has already mentioned, this is designed to be transitioned. It's designed to be moved over to the warfighter to be utilized as opposed to just simply being a technical demonstration. So the first Vanguard that we're going to talk about is actually one of the first three that were commissioned last year. And the first one is actually NTS-3, or the Navigation Technology Satellite 3 program. And this program is designed to field the next generation of GPS and timekeeping satellites that our warfighters utilize daily as they execute their missions. What's important about this is it will bring us into the next generation of technology. It will help us prevent jamming and other adverse effects as we move into conflicts or even in peacekeeping missions. It'll ensure that we have the good integrity of our GPS system always at the warfighter's fingertips. What's really neat about this program also is the fact that it is an engagement between not only Air Force, but also the newly stood up Space Force as well. We're actually seeing that integration between those two services occur. And this is a really great program that is bringing those two groups together and working for a common cause. The benefits of the warfighter we've already kind of talked about, but the fact is that it will allow for augmentation of our current GPS system and then eventually move into that next generation as well. And on top of that, it gives us flexibility and other systems that we can look at for the GPS and timekeeping systems. Right now, this is not just a demonstration. It's actually going to be launched in space and actually be tested and utilized as it would be utilized in a fully fielded configuration. So it's one of the first programs where we're going from tip to tail, all the way from design to a fully functioning system in quite some time, especially within the GPS architecture. So this is a real milestone program.
Yeah, if I could add one thing too before you go on.
Sure.
So here's another example where we took what was already a well-integrated program as a Vanguard, and then through the 6.4 portfolio, now we're investing in open architecture PNT pods that build off of the resilient EGI capability that LCMC has been pioneering. So it's another example of being able to bring together multiple technologies to bring a holistic capability to the field.
That's exactly right. The next program is a really great example of being agile and being able to listen to the voice of the customer and make modifications to the needs. So Golden Horde is a program which allows our weapons to work cooperatively and work together in order to find targets and also neutralize targets. What's unique about this program was we had started this off as a Vanguard, and there were various stages that were planned. And as we began to execute the Vanguard, the voice of the customer, the voice of the warfighter came back and said, "Hey, we need you to make some changes to this program because we want to be able to transition this." And so it has allowed us to make adjustments and actually put to the test the actual teamwork that needs to occur for successful Vanguard. The program office responded. We've made some revectoring changes to make this a much more attractive program for transition. We also been able to continue on our current path on some of the early experimentation that we're doing, and then migrate it over into this new revectoring. So we're going to be delivering integrated demonstration weapons, but also we're going to be delivering for the customer the platform and the open architecture that's required for collaborative weapons, and forming what they're calling the Coliseum, which will allow competitors to play within the Coliseum and compete their ideas with a common infrastructure, common hardware and software framework. So it kind of levels the playing field so that everything can remain compatible between not only Golden Horde, but other programs that we have going, but also allows the platform allows non-traditionals to also participate in an area that non-traditionals typically weren't able to get into. So you don't just have the large players now. By setting this up in the way that Golden Horde is doing, we're able to have the smaller guys, the people that have new, unique ideas, bring their ideas to the forefront and actually compete them digitally, virtually, and then finally in a full-on experimentation, which is exactly what the customer demanded of us. And so it's allowed us to make some really good changes to do this. So we're delivering not only demonstration weapons, but we're also delivering the digital background for collaborative weapon architectures for the foreseeable future, and also allows for the Coliseum to allow for competition within the weapons technologies.
Yeah, but by the way, let me reinforce too. You know, we talked about the commitment from stakeholder commitment to these Vanguards. As part of that, when we stood these up and commissioned them through the CDC, Dr. Roper, the senior acquisition executive of the Air Force, assigned program executive officers to each of the Vanguards, and that has been really key in working together to develop that transition plan and strategy.
Right. It's given us excellent feedback, and it's really turned into a team organization that way.
Yeah, and I think you'll talk about it a little bit more. But what we're finding is that the teams are actually starting to blend, and that's exactly what we hoped would happen, is that they would become kind of seamless between laboratory and program office personnel, and buying into that idea of experimentation to explore different potential capabilities in all of these different Vanguards has really been a key element as well.
And so the final Vanguard, and we'll be wrapping up here very shortly, is the Skyborg Vanguard. And this Vanguard has really been the pioneer for the teamwork and execution of teams from disparate groups across the organization, across the Air Force. As you mentioned, the Program Executive Office, or the PEO, has been very, very integrated with the stand-up of this program. And so we literally had the voice of the customer sitting right beside the program office as they're bringing the new technologies out to the field. And the idea behind the Skyborg is an autonomous platform, which will basically allow our vehicles to cover all stages of the mission: takeoff, avoiding weather, going into contested areas, acting almost as a loyal wingman to help out other aircraft in the area, and then performing the mission, and then safely returning back and landing, and being able to be reconfigured for yet another mission in the near future. So they work together, they could work cooperatively, and as you can see, the way we've set things up, you can see in the little diagram in the bottom right, we have hardware, software, operations in the vehicle. Those are four key pieces, four key lines of effort that we have going on within this program. But what's really neat is that they are all interlocked. They're just like the puzzle pieces that are shown there. And these pieces all have to work together. And then also, when you think about it, we're also integrating it not only with the hardware, software, and the vehicle, but we're also integrating it with the customer, and with the labs, and with the technical directorates that support us in the lab. These people and these folks are all interlocked, just like those puzzle pieces. And this is a very, very good example of how a Vanguard should be executed, and how the new way of thinking and how our new method of collaboration is actually being executed. What's one very important part of this is that not only is this going from a clean sheet design to working hardware, software, but just as Mr. Ristich said, it's going to be then worked and tested in an operationally relevant environment. So it's not just a simple flight test. It's actually going to be demonstrated for the customers to show that, yes, this is a good technology to move forward with. And this has got a several milestones that are going to be attacked and addressed through FY 21, 22, and 23. And it is going to transition into a program of record. So this will be the basis of future automation that we utilize in the years to come. So it's a very, very pivotal program. It's a very important program. But what's really been the best part of this program is the fact that we've been able to integrate the teams, and this has really shown that it's truly a team sport to be able to make something like this happen and occur.
Absolutely, totally agree. So again, one last comment. I think we're coming up close to the mark here. I mentioned the bringing operational experimentation together with the development of these cutting edge technologies. The thing that I guess just to put it simply, in order to generate transformational capabilities, it means you're going to have to do things in a very different way, or have the opportunity to do things in a very different way. So you have to develop new ConOps and concepts of employment to go with those. And that's part of the experimentation. But through the process, we're going to have a whole series of orange flag and other kinds of national level exercises that we're going to be bringing these different evolving components of Skyborg to. As we do that, we'll both demonstrate military utility and buy-in from the actual end users, the operators that are going to use these. And we're finding that to be a really important element of transformational capabilities. I think that concludes our session.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, look forward to working with you all under the TCO umbrella.